What's going on, everyone? Good morning. It is Wednesday. It is 11 o'clock Eastern. It is freezing outside, but Ian Spanier's here, and he braved the cold, and I mean across country for this. So let's make him feel welcome. But you know, you're always welcome here. This is not a green screen. This is 42 West 18th Street. These chairs are as much for you as that chat room is. So make sure you check out the event schedule and come hang out if you're ever in town. I'm glad I got this guy in here. But before we get into who he is and all this, you know what we got to do? We got to do some housekeeping, right? I want to say thanks to Westcott for sponsoring this. Ian, you shoot to Westcott. They have a full lineup of strobe. We're talking about the FJ400, FJ402, FJ800, the new FJ250, which is a pretty nice little compact strobe, 250 watt second that can still take the same battery as the 800 watt second strobe. Like, how cool is that? The multiple camera remote, like it's almost universal. I mean, there's so much going on with the Westcott system. Check out the links down below for the full lineup. And you've definitely seen demos right here using Westcott with JC. I've even done some myself over on the Adorama Events channel. So go check that out. I also want to say a quick thank you to Tenba. Tenba was like, we want to support you guys because you're featuring cool people. So they made us a custom Cough with Creators bag that you get to take home, man. Look at this nice custom engraving.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. So Tenbo was started right here in New York, 1977, by a photographer. So go check out the links for the full Tenbo lineup, from rollers, cases, everything, all super well made. And if you've been in this industry a while, I always say it, you probably get a Tenbo at some point. And last but not least, I want to thank Gotham Roasters for the coffee. Cheers, kid. What'd you get?
Little tea.
Little tea.
No coffee for me.
No, man. He's a quiet boy, you know? It's all right. We're gonna get into it. But Gotham Roasters is one block up from Adorama, owned by a photographer and a filmmaker. So you're supporting the industry. If you come into an event, go over there, say Adorama sent you, then sit down here, flash the cup in my face really annoyingly, and we'll give you a thumbs up. Okay. We appreciate all you guys. All right. So who is Ian Spanier? Well, number one, they always, every time your name comes up, it's the same thing. Celebrity photographer. Got it. But what's really cool is my man was a photo editor forever, you know? And I was saying to him, there's some photo editors that become photographers because what people don't realize is photo editors often don't shoot. They just know how to curate what to piece together from what you deliver to them. But very few I've seen have had a career as successful as yours, as prolific as yours, meaning like a reliable shot. You're always delivering. You're not getting like one-off jobs here and there. You are constantly out there doing it. I think you have a pretty, I don't want to say prolific, but I can spot the level of your style, but it is never the super same. Like, you're always giving a personality to the person that's there. You're always respecting your subject and thinking, what can I do for that subject? And one thing he does, which maybe I'm wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of really lean on a natural look. You don't go strobe, heavy light, heavy style. You go, no, like, that, make it easy so that it's not interrupting the viewer from the subject. So anyway, Ian Spanier, everybody.
Well, we can talk right. Thank you. But we can actually talk right on that, because most of my learning, aside from when I was on set with some amazing photographers like Albert Watson and, you know, this contemporary core of amazing photographers shooting for these magazines here in New York, basically at that time, everything I was learning was from the sun. So my knowledge about lighting is mostly self-taught. And as a result, everything I do in studio when I'm working with artificial light is recreating what I witnessed from the sun, and essentially worked at recreating it in some form or fashion. And if it's multiple lights, it's me using a combination of things I saw from the sun that I liked, and then made note of it, and then figured out how to do it in the studio.
I think that's what people miss, is that you can't just like, let me try to mimic light if you're not studying light. I'm talking about temperatures. I'm talking about the way it diffracts, the way it diffuses. Because the thing about natural light that people often miss is that it's not just one big open source. It's bouncing around. That's the thing that makes it organic.
Absolutely. And the story I always tell is my time here in New York, that walking down the street, I was just making mental notes of the sun throughout the whole year, what it does in different times of day, different atmospheric conditions, the bounce light like you talk about. I love New York. It's great for it. You've got mirror buildings, you've got white buildings, you've got colored buildings, you've got, you know, rusted metal, you got all these different things. And those are all things to use in your brain when it comes to how you're going to create light in a studio.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I remember I was hanging out with Ab Cisse, and he's like walking around with a meter, going to like different spots of pockets of light, and he's like, okay, the temperature is this. And then a week later, I'll see a gel version of like, no, it's not complete CTO gel. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm like, God, this is what separates people from just taking pictures.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you often asked, like when you are approaching a subject or you're being hired by whoever for your jobs, do they go like, we want that natural look? Or you're like, here's what I'm going to deliver for you?
Well, I spent a good period of my time just creating what I thought everybody else wanted, or I'd ask, what do you want? And if I got the answer back then, that was more rare than these days where you don't get that. And, you know, photo editing to some degree has turned into production. It's not really photo editing like it used to be, in my humble opinion. But
Oh, he's got opinions. Oh, we were alive.
Yes.
My man was all over the opinion.
But the reality is that once I figured out that I'm being hired for what I do, then I needed to take stock in that and have that self-confidence that I could deliver to people my thing, what I do. And that took a minute because my sort of belief was I was good at understanding the voice of a magazine, which is when I was photo editing. That was my thing. I worked at everything from GQ and Esquire to Marie Claire. Now, I'm a straight white guy. What do I know about Marie Claire? You know, but at the end of the day, I could look at the magazine and understand its voice, and then I could create imagery for it, direct imagery for it. And that's really what built me as both a photo editor and a photographer.
Yeah, that's really what the professional comes from, is like being able to interpret for what you're trying to, where it eventually ends up.
Understand the story. That's really
and
what
the
it is.
audience, right?
And so back to lighting. All of my lighting is based on the story. What am I trying to tell today? What is the thing that I'm trying to get across? And so I use lighting to help tell that story, because most of the time you're not explaining it, and you shouldn't be explaining photographs, in my opinion, anyway. So if the image speaks for itself, and we all want this as photographers, where whether it's a magazine or an ad or a book, that the image is more important than the words. And the authors I've worked with will kill me for saying this, of course, but I say it to them, to their faces too. But the reality is you look at images first. That's what we do as people.
That's
right?
what makes them land on the words.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. When you go to the bookstore, what do you look at?
I know you go
book cover.
look through and you also
Well,
like
the book cover. If the
Yeah.
book cover sells you, you might pick it up and say, hey, what's this about? You know?
I haven't seen like a real compelling book cover in a long time. It's like,
Yeah.
let me guess, someone in a business suit with words that are powerful, or some sort of like, it almost looks like a metal painting and then some holofoil graphic on. Like, I've never been like, I don't know. Like, but then when it comes to an art book, that's everything, right? Like what's on the cover of it, unless it's a name like Avedon written across it or something like that. But I think it's a tough industry to navigate. There's a lot of people trying to vie for positions.
Yep.
And to stay working is in itself is commendable. We were talking about this. We've been arm's length. I think this is the first time we're actually talking, to be honest with you.
I mean, we only met a month ago in person.
At Imaging, I got on stage right after this guy. He left it a mess for me, by the way. It was, you had a lot of gear.
Candy
dude.
wrappers and gum.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, you had so much gear up there. I was like, man, this guy, but he was going through flash and constant lighting together. So you almost
and
double up.
faking natural light
And
too.
faking natural light.
So it was a necessity to have all these different things, because I think I was teaching about using a light meter basically, but essentially the thing that I wanted to get across to people is that a light meter applies to every situation you're in. And if you want to understand light, a light meter is your path to do that. And I think there was, I hate to say it, I'm not going to name names, but there were some photographers there that I didn't expect to be there. And they were like, oh, I haven't touched my light meter in years. And I was like, you're a professional photographer and you don't use a light meter? Like, oh, well, I just, let the numbers, dictate. I turn it up, I turn it down. And I'm like, well, that's not very efficient. And that's my whole point in that whole lecture is, if you want to be efficient, and time is money, and if you get $400 for the day and you're getting that in 15 minutes as opposed to 2 hours, that's a better way to spend it.
Or how about client confidence? You're not wasting frames or time.
Absolutely.
You're showing on the spot that you know what you're doing. It changes the frame itself when they start believing in you, right? And I think people forget about that. I mean, everything we do is a language. And I always tell you guys, everything we do in that frame is a choice, is a word and a sentence. Well, what if those words are incoherent to start? And you're like, hold on, I'll get to the point. You already lost the engagement. And then the photo suffers from it. It's almost like having bad posture. It's the same thing.
Yeah. No, when you get your first image out of the camera and your client sees it and it's either spot on or near spot on, you might tweak a little bit, but you're basically in the ballpark or in the range of what you want to be. It only makes you look as good as you claim to be. So for me, it's light meter all the way.
My favorite part of of the light meter, like people hating on it. It's like, oh, it's like $200. I'm like, okay, listen to me. It is at a baseline $200 for a measuring tool you will buy once and keep in your kit forever, no matter what else you buy. I don't care what camera system you switch to, lights, whatever. You're working in light and you don't want to invest in a piece of equipment that will accurately and definitively measure what you're working with.
My first light meter was the lowest base Seconic light meter, right?
Was it the analog one?
It was. No, I'm not that old.
Come
Jesus.
on. They still make it. Am I right? They still make that one.
I think they do, but I think it was like the 358, something like that. I think.
It's
been.
this one, the 308.
Yeah, it's been updated in numbers in the years, but yes.
Got one
Okay,
right here.
first one.
Beat up to hell, but yeah.
22 years I had that. The only reason I upgraded was I needed a spot meter because at the time I was shooting travel, and I needed a spot meter to be able to meter far off, buildings and things like that. And I tell people that small investment taught me so much, again, because in school where I did study photography, we didn't do lighting. We had 2 Home Depot silver dishes with
Yes.
60-watt bulbs. That's it.
Yes.
You know?
Amazing. Well, you know what? I upgraded from that. You know why? One, I needed to figure out flash duration for a lot of things, but also the meters that I find really helpful, the ones that show you percentage of ambient and strobe. So you can actually determine exactly what this frame is doing. So if it's 50% strobe and ambient, it's pretty natural looking. It's just a fill.
Yeah.
But if it's 90% strobe, I know it's very stylized, contrasty, and so that I think as a learning tool and getting a feel of light is exponentially helpful.
Absolutely. And that's very much to what my point was at that lecture, was talking about
you.
understanding almost in your head, which I would argue that I can do when I walk outside. I kind of know what my exposure is going to be thereabouts, and the meter confirms that for me. And if I'm combining strobe and natural light, of course I want to understand what both lights are doing.
Yeah.
Just as much if I'm in a studio and I have more than one strobe going, I need to understand what each one's doing individually so that I can control the light, manipulate it, expose everything the way I want it exposed, and not just guess, which is what I think a lot of people are doing.
And also understand the zones, right? That background to the foreground situation. Like people overlook that kind of thing, but SDA is asking, what light meter do you actually use?
So I have a Seconic still. I'm very loyal to that brand.
It is the light meter.
It
in my
is,
opinion.
yeah.
Like what other,
I have I think the one you're talking about, the 858L-U. Yeah. So I did the same thing when high speed sync started to come into play.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to understand flash duration, and I'll be honest, I don't love high speed sync. I tend to stay away from it because, in my opinion, it's always going to be a variable. There's too many variables going on, so it's never going to be the same thing. And I need things that will be the same thing, so that if I'm in a field or if I'm in a studio and I'm working with an athlete or a celebrity or whatever I'm doing, I can consistently know what I'm going to deal with, or at least anticipate it. And that puts me in a position to always move forward if something doesn't go there. High speed sync to me just jumps all over the place, and it's so dependent on every other variable. What's the sun doing today? What's this, studio looking like? Are we in a conference room where you can't turn the ceiling lights off? That hit me at the demo. I couldn't turn the stage lights off. And so I was demonstrating natural light, and now I got this stage light blasting across
the sconces,
stage.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're far away, so that's a hard light cutting across my blasting right into my subject. Yeah. And had I anticipated that, I would have blocked it, but that would have blocked my light too. So what am I supposed to do? So you deal with it.
People don't understand that at the demo, the weird factors you're kind of balancing that is impacting the actual demo is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't realize the caveats you're making to show them like one thing, and they're judging you and picking apart everything you're doing, or like they're filming the whole thing and you're like, what are we doing here, man?
Well, the first point that people love to do is to be skeptical. Right? So
photographers,
yeah,
nah,
never, yeah.
man.
So when I do bring up the light meter, which is definitely my soapbox, obviously, but the reality is the first response typically is, "Oh yeah, I have one."
I never use it.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the end of that sentence,
Yeah.
and it's like, really? And I just don't get it. Like, to me, maybe it's because I'm mostly self-taught. Maybe it's because I know that it works. I don't know.
I think it's a habitual thing. I think people got so used to TTL, but I also think they're not doing as complicated of setups. So when you're just throwing a single light at something and you're doing TTL, you can kind of get through it. But I think when you're talking about literally trying to make the brown of that background look this tone and keep it that way the whole way. Or what I use a light mirror the most for is if I have something big coming up, I'll do a test in my studio, measure it, make sure I know what I need everything to be. And then when I go somewhere else, it won't be the same because I'm in an all white studio, lights bouncing.
Yeah.
But I need that light. I don't care what number is on the back of that light, but I need it to hit F8 right here or whatever here. And that light meter will get you there.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not TTLing all over again, you know?
You always have to be ready to make those adjustments for the location. So.
And with high speed sync, you know what's funny is when they come to me like, oh, I got to freeze action, I'm going to use high speed sync. I'm like, that's not what freezes action.
No.
It is the longest flash duration you possibly have. And also, one thing people don't put into account with high speed sync is it sucks up so much power. You end up having to move your lights closer than you normally would, which affects the pattern of the light.
Yes, and I'm not typically a very low depth of field shooter. I do on occasion, but usually I live in that sort of F7.1, F8, F11, F16 if I'm doing big groups or something like that. But I don't tend to be at 1.8 or...
What? Come on. What are you talking about? Pay all the money for the lens. What are you talking about?
I know,
Commercial land. People don't understand that. I'm shooting F11 for a lot of the stuff I have to do.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
They're not looking for just like the corneas to be sharp, you know what I mean?
For a key art poster, you literally cannot give them stuff where things are out of focus because the reality is that they may need that fingernail.
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's true.
You just don't know.
I end up doing, when I have to do something shallow looking, there's a reason for it. And it's usually something environmental.
Yes.
You know, like they're trying to get them to separate out of something or make something look more abstract, or I don't know if you count this, but it's always for social. It's never for print. It's always for something smaller oriented.
I haven't encountered that so much, but I would say, you know, my last book on cigars, I shot a lot of it very wide open because the reality is that there's a romanticism to cigars that I needed to portray. I'm in a lot of low light conditions without strobes in a lot of situations. And then as well, I wanted this sort of not advertising look to the cigars in these factories and, you know, the people and all those different subject matters that I was photographing, or even in the fields where maybe I wanted just the leaves in the foreground in focus and everything else soft, or vice versa. Maybe my subject's far away and I want all the leaves out of focus and just my subject sharp and that's it. And so I was intentionally using, you know, 5.6 and below in order to tell that story.
Yeah.
You know,
and you feel like you're in that environment because your eyes would dilate.
that's what I wanted.
And
I wanted you to feel like you were there.
Yeah, that's how I started off my demo. I was like, we're going to shoot shallow because I want to do this rainy car night scene. So why would it be F11? Why would you have no, you want to feel that same, your viewer doesn't know the technical, but they know the feel. So like I always say, like you're pulling levers inside their head. They're like, I don't know what the light is in this bar, but I know what that feels like to be in a bar. Now we've got to bring that subconsciously with what they do know. They're looking at light their whole life.
Yeah.
They just aren't doing what we're doing and ripping it apart left and right, you know, things like that.
Well, before I even knew much about lighting, one of my very first assignments when I was a photo editor still at GQ, they sent me out to Red Hook when Red Hook was Red Hook. And
I know Red Hook.
They said this was the directions, literally. You will pass 4 dogs, an abandoned bus, and then a burnt out car, turn left, and you'll be at Sonny's Bar. Have you ever know Sonny's Bar?
I do not know Sonny's Bar, but that sounds about like Red Hook. That's like probably what, early 90s?
This would be in the 90s. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this very dark bar, but the story was about the feeling of being at Sonny's Bar. This is this like famous little joint that people are going to, again, before Red Hook was Red Hook now. But basically I shot it with Ilford like 3200.
Beautiful.
And I just sat at the bar very quietly, had a drink in front of me so that it looked like I was just somebody else. And I just quietly shot images. Nothing going off, no extra lights, just using the available light for the room. And it was intended for the viewer, the reader, eventually to feel like they were there.
Yeah.
The guy in Iowa reading GQ, I don't know if anybody in Iowa reads GQ, but back then maybe, and basically feeling like they were sitting at that bar in Red Hook.
I think that's what we're going through right now with younger generation photographers wanting to shoot more authentic than polished. Mm-hmm. Like you want to feel like you really are encountering that person with an on-camera flash at that party, hard light, bang. Years ago, you'd be like, no, bounce that light, put a magnetic thing on it, do all these things. But now it's like, no, rip it. I want it to feel like it's my shot out of a disposable camera, that I was really a part of that party, you know?
Well, speaking of JC, I mean, that's my favorite of his work.
JC,
is when JC does the music stuff. And I love that to me is JC.
That's how I met him in the hardcore scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're both old punks. So it's like, it's like, if you guys don't know JC Carey, he has a couple of demos on the Events channel. Great guy, very cool work. But man, it's funny because like we were just talking about how there's like different sides of the industry and stuff like that. We were talking about the commercial thing, but then there's this whole side that you guys find us on, which is like when we're talking or doing class, whatever, whole nother animal. And sometimes you feel like you're talking to a different species of photographer. When you walk into that side of the industry, you're kind of like, okay, I'm surrounded by a bunch of wedding and family people. Okay, I have to, clean it up a little bit.
It is definitely different. I mean, I got some great questions from people that came to imaging after on Instagram, and it is me. Some people say, is this really you? I am genuine like that, but they were just, asking me about, sports photography with kids, and it's literally nothing I do, but at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. It's just applying our knowledge to different areas. And so I was able to speak with him about what he was experiencing and what he was essentially on his own diagnosis doing wrong. And, it's just basics, and photography is not that complicated, but we also have to make it so it's not that complicated. It doesn't need to be that complicated.
Yeah, I think people get absorbed by the technical, thinking that will save them from conceptual, or just like getting the shot finished. They just keep throwing things at it. One of the last demos I did in here, they're like, it was one light, and I'm just, showing the dark background, dark. Get a flag, get this. Like, whoa, before we start doing that, how about we do the things we can do before we start pulling things out, setting things up that eat up time, that distract, puts you in quicksand, another variable you got to worry about. Like, take a breath. And I think people don't do that. I don't think they take a step back for a second and go like, what's in front of me? What am I trying to get? Because a lot of times they don't know what they're trying to get. Especially at trade shows, you see people set up like a single light, TTL. They got an exposure. It's not over, under. They're like,
good. Yeah.
Is it? No. You tell me, but they don't even know.
No.
They don't even know, right? So I think that's the issue.
Well, it goes back to what I said about telling a story. What's the story of the day? So when you go back to when we're talking about clients, I'm going at my clients and I'm asking them questions that will give me some verbiage to what I'm going to do lighting wise. So I don't ask them, what do you want today? I ask them, what's the story? We used to get the stories beforehand for editorial. We used to be able to read them. Now you just basically get a phone number and a time and a place to show up. And
that's all your mood board.
Sometimes. Yeah. Advertising, marketing, yes. Not as much editorial. A lot of the editorial assignments I do as well, the budgets have gotten so small that you do need to work minimally. You might only get, a lot of, times in Hollywood, we get 30 seconds, 2 minutes, that happens. But even if you get, 2 hours with somebody, I'm not necessarily in a situation where I have a crew. I don't have a bunch of assistants running flags around if I need it.
Yeah.
So I got to be versatile. I got to be nimble, and I got to be in a situation where I can get my client the maximum amount in whatever time period I have. And as you saw with the 3 setups what is that, an hour and a half or whatever I was speaking for, I will do, 4 or 5 setups in 40 minutes in a hotel room in Hollywood with a celebrity because I know that my client will come back to me if I deliver that amount of variety.
Oh yeah. And don't forget, they're not putting all the extra looks. That's months of them publishing. So like they put that out in the spring, then something for the fall, even though it was all shot in the same day, and they love that.
Yeah.
You gave them a bank of stuff instead of having to go chase another setup or something like that.
The worst thing you can hear at the end of a shoot is, do you have any more?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's cringy. Yeah.
Well, sometimes if I hear something even closer, I'm like, what are you looking for? And more often than not, they don't know. They're waiting for something to show up that hits the way, but they're not communicating to you. Right. So I'm kind of like, where are we going with this or whatever? I love that they, I don't know how you feel, but like when you have someone that you're doing a kind of editorial of a portrait and they put them in a space that they're not germane to. So then they're kind of acclimating to where they're at, which makes it not really feel like it's their portrait. So you're trying to find a way to make it feel like this isn't a weird space to you, but they booked it and now we all have to work in it. You know what I mean? The other thing I think is they don't know what the shot could be. So like you have a single light or whatever, and you're like, man, if I only had like a rim here, it would be great. They don't know that.
No.
Like breathe,
No, it's our jobs to interpret what the story is, and our jobs to give them something that's going to fulfill the content need that they may not know.
All of that.
Yeah. By the way, somebody just asked about sharks. It caught my eye.
Oh yeah, because you have a fear of sharks or something.
So I did. My one and only fear. I don't have a good fear switch, which has gotten me into some bad situations as a photographer. I would definitely say 1,000%.
He's gonna have an A&E series coming out soon.
Yeah, yes. Thank God nobody did BTS back then. But I went to South Africa with a buddy of mine who had an equal fascination for sharks. And this was self-imposed. As a kid, I swam at Jones Beach all the time, went out past the waves, no problem. And then I saw Jaws, and Jaws kind of stuck with me. And then I read Meg. I know it became kind of a cheesy movie.
That is a very cheesy movie.
I know, but the book was fantastic. And
it was a book?
Then I saw, yeah, it was a great book. Great story. The guy, I think, was homeless and wrote the book, and then Spielberg optioned it or something like, yeah, there's some crazy story behind it. But anyway, so then I was watching Shark Week when Shark Week first started, and I saw this woman swimming in the ocean, and she got her leg popped off, and I was like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not going in the ocean anymore. And it was just like, it was crazy. I don't know where it came from, because I don't have that thing, right? Like spiders, snakes, all good, whatever. And even, you know, guns, and I've been in those situations, and it's all good. Figure it out. And so we went to Africa. I went in the cage. I literally was the first person to spot a shark after the captain said, you're never going to see the fin. It's not like Jaws, blah, blah. And of course, the first shark that came, the fin was out. And he goes, I'm going to go downstairs. But honestly, the water shocked you more than the shark. Okay. And we're talking 15-foot great whites banging into the cage right next to the boat, attacking the motor, all of it. It's just like on TV. But by the third pass of the first great white hitting the cage, we were all reaching out to try to touch it. So there's that stupid fear switch that turns off. But yeah, I got over it, went back in the ocean, I still think about it. Yeah. And certainly in California, they're everywhere in California, especially lately for some reason.
But not 15-foot great whites.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. In Malibu, you could be out paddleboarding, and they're right next to you. You don't even know it.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a guy who does drone footage of the sharks in Malibu. And he had one passing under the Malibu pier, which is literally where I paddleboard, right under the pier, back and forth, doing circles. If you see sea lions, you're going to see sharks.
Oh, I bet that I believe. Well, you know, Adorama owns scuba.com.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I bet you there's some dots to connect there. Let's see what we can do. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But let's talk about fear for a second, because any of you that follow me know I talked a bunch about lighting people on fire and stop doing it. But I got a real pro here that did a real pro shoot, and you did this, right? But let's talk about what makes this different from lighting people randomly on fire in a small home studio and, I don't know, professionals on set.
Yeah.
Who are you shooting?
You see that big guy right there? Okay. He not only is a professional stuntman, as is the guy with the other towel there, he is also a stunt pro. Like, this is what all three of these people do, is big time movies, all kind of Hollywood, everything. Hannah, who's the model, is an extremely experienced stunt woman. I would never ask your average person, what did you say, cheerleaders or football players? Yeah. I would never do that. First off, high school should never allow that, insurance-wise and all that other stuff. But nonetheless, and how many of you out there actually have insurance? I do. And I will provide a certificate of insurance when asked. And I do bill my clients for that as well. Another way to make some money, by the way. But
clients want insurance.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But at the end of the day, this was extremely, extremely planned out. I'm talking a month of pre-production, all to do this, very safe. She and her crew know exactly what we were going to do. We tested it without fire, obviously, many times before actually shooting. So the actual shoot time, like we tell photographers all the time, is what, 10% of your life, right? The rest is pushing papers, just like every other business, and making calls, marketing yourself, sales, all that other stuff. This pre-production was a lot of work, all to lead up to one image, right?
But it is, I mean, first of all, outside, in dirt, not in a studio, on paper, with low ceilings. She's got the gel in her hair. You have licensed professionals. You have, everything was put together here properly. That's the big difference, right?
I mean, even the distance of my lights, I'm asking this professional crew, where can I be safely? Where can, what direction is the wind going? What's our best place to shoot? I had to shoot there because of the wind. We were using a tree that's off to the left there to block some of the wind that was coming, and it was kind of windy that day. So I'm relying on their professional experience to do this properly and safely for everybody.
Well, that's why you hire professionals, right? It's amazing.
Yes.
But I just think that there's like a weird ego to photographers, man, that they just kind of like, well, why can't I? Don't tell me what to do kind of stuff. And it's like, you're lighting people on fire with no regard. You know what that does for the rest of the industry? Your insurance goes up. Oh, you're going to be shooting fire, huh? Hey, we had a few kids burn this year. Guess what? Also, when he talks about the distance of light, what I don't think people realize is not all softboxes are rated for high light, high heat. So, for example, there's some modeling lights that are over 250 watts of power that will melt a lot of softboxes out there. So, if it's not rated for constant light or high heat, it will melt. Guess what fire is? High heat, huh?
One of my very first lessons as a photographer, and I talk about failing all the time and how much I love to fail and how you learn to fail as a means of growing as a person and growing as a photographer. One of my very first experiences was jamming a light way up high into low ceilings because it was the right spot for the light in an office, and not thinking about that back then they used halogen bulbs instead of LEDs, and it burned my softbox, which I rented, which ended up costing me what the cost of that softbox. So it was my very first softbox that I owned, was because I burned a nice big hole in it, not knowing that by pushing it up against that light, it could burn. I assumed it's got a strobe in there, it's not going to burn. And fast forward, any other office space that I'm in where I'm doing that once again, where I'm jamming my lights up into the ceiling, I'm checking for that halogen, making sure that it's not there, or making sure whatever that light source is not going to burn if my modifier is something that is not rated for high heat.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how safety goes like out the window pretty easily for most that aren't really doing this for a living. It's like wild to me. And then everyone knows I'm a psychotic mess about C-stands and how the arm hangs and all this stuff. And like I've seen so many C-stands fail, fall, and literally hurt people. You know what's funny? The way I learned about soft boxes and heat. Do you ever use a refill light? You ever use one of those back in the day?
No.
So it was like a Lowell made them, and they actually designed the soft box with a constant light in there. But if it blew up, which they did, the soft box was made to contain it all.
Really?
And that's, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And then that's where I started learning about it. But I was like, I was a teenager, but like, what do I know?
Yeah.
But we actually had that happen live. If Daniel Norton's watching, he remembers that episode. Because when you touched halogen bulbs, if people didn't know, your oil from your hand burned on the bulb and then not a little pop, exploded.
Yeah. And that's an expensive blow up.
It's scary as hell. You're kidding me, man? Like, and if you have talent, can you imagine if you got known as the guy who burned the face of someone who is making a living with their face?
I laugh, but it's not funny. But I arced an old Speedotron when I was first starting out.
I still have those, man.
Oh my God.
I love
and for those of you who don't know, arcing means that like it's like a blockbuster going off in the room. And if you're in a small space, it's scary. It sounds like a bomb.
Well, also Speedotrons are this big. Like they literally are like two cinder blocks, I would say.
Yeah.
And what's funny is you plug it into the port has metal around it. The cable going into it has metal around it, and the arc would touch your thumb, and that was about it.
Yeah, not fun.
Novatron used Normans. I've been sparked by Normans. I've blown a lot of circuit breakers in my time. I learned pretty quickly that not all circuit breakers are created equal. You're just popping them like crazy, 2400 watt seconds ripping.
It's why I like portable lights so much, because I'm not dealing with the AC, and certainly when you're working in countries where maybe you can't plug in, that versatility of not having to plug in, that's huge for me.
You're on Westcott. You have an 800 watt second cordless strobe. Like, you babies are so spoiled. Like, isn't it crazy? Like, back in the day, I would have killed for that much power.
I mean, it was, somebody asked me at imaging, what light should I buy? And that's probably the most common question I get. What strobe should I buy? And I always explain to people my story, which was I started with Dynalights, and I was like, these would be great. They're easy to move, and they're very simple. And again, I was teaching myself, so it was not very complicated technically, but all I needed was more power all the time. I just kept thinking more power, more power, more power. And, now seeing the availability of power in small containment, it's like it just got easier.
Well, also, I think people don't realize they can adjust their habits. If they're starving for power, I'm like, well, what are you doing that you're constantly at full power? What paint are you trying to strip off of what wall? Well, let's not, digital makes it so easy. It does make it a lot
right?
easier. Yeah, it does.
We were talking film back then. So film was harder because if you wanted to shoot at 100 ISO, based on your film, you were limited to some degree.
Well, you had to. They wanted slides almost all the time if you were shooting color.
Yeah.
You were shooting Velvia at 50 ISO. I was exposing at 64, you know.
Yeah.
But then I remember when Velvia 100 came out, we were all like, oh my God. It was like the biggest thing. And now it's like you can shoot at 800 ISO to start, get yourself, you know.
I mean, I do jobs at 5,000 ISO sometimes.
Yeah.
It's clean, you know, especially with, you know, the technology that's there to clean up an image in post if you can. Some of my editorial clients, you can't retouch at all. So you have to be able to know what works and what doesn't.
But I think the gear has changed the way we shoot also. So for example, you shoot now you can do 20, 30 frames a second. On film, you did 8 frames a second, right?
Whoa, hang on now.
Well, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say, but listen.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, don't do that.
I was just going to say, don't spray and pray.
No, but I'm saying having that capability is there, right? So in a weird case that you're trying to do something sequential at that level, before you're doing 8 frames a second on 36 exposures, you were done in 3 seconds.
Yes.
Now, when you need that burst for that amount of time in a small thing, I would raise my ISO just so that I could have the power of the strobe low enough so it could recycle fast enough to stick with me for at least a third of a second to give me that frame per second for whatever I'm doing. I'm not spraying and praying for a whole thing until something explodes. Who do you think I am, man?
Just making sure.
Also, you know what I think is funny? When people do that, they don't even take into account the human being that's being subjected to a strobe in their face.
Oh, I mean, you need a label warning before you do that.
It's like, well, you now have epilepsy. Enjoy that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy.
Well, I think going back to what you were saying about photographers in general these days, that moves away from creating an image. You know, it's just, you're just pushing to just capture. And it's, yes, we talked about the need for content, but the reality is that content is built through good content. It's not built through just having a lot of imagery. And I do have art directors who, oh yeah, that's the shot. Let's just shoot a few more just so we have it. And I get it. But at the end of the day, I know you're not going to use these extra 12 frames that I'm shooting. I'm just doing that to appease you.
It's a safety net. Yeah. I always tell them, like, what, in case when one gets scratched? You remember when you used to say that?
Yes.
Do you remember those?
Or the lab loses the roll.
The
or
lab
whatever.
loses the roll. Yeah. Oh my God. I haven't heard that in a long time. I always said scratch because like that was way more likely to me.
By the way, Andrea from Westcott says we're spoiled, and you know, she's right.
Well, it's crazy what you have available. I mean, even Westcott being able to use one remote across multiple types of cameras, you're spoiled.
I absolutely love that because as we were talking about when I first walked in here is about the amount of gear we have to haul. And, you know, to be able to have especially in the case of Westcott, that's a universal trigger. And if you're using everything under the moon, if you like to shoot multiple cameras,
that's me.
You're pretty covered. And for not a huge price point, which that was a big sell to me when I started working with them.
It's also not having to match remotes. Like you can literally take it off where you're at and go to the next one. Although it won't be the same because every camera shoots a little differently, whatever. But like I shoot
another reason for a light meter.
Yes, it is true because the light meter is definitive, right? It's not anyway.
Yeah.
But I shoot Fujifilm GFX and I shoot Nikon a lot. And just to go between those two systems, sometimes like I have to have redundancies. You have an extra case of just replica of replicating the gear. Like you're like, I don't know, but it is very cool. And I think it's amazing where we're at and what you can just put into a backpack and just go do. Yeah. Like it's just nuts. And now you can have an assistant just handhold those strobes, Hollywood them. Not plug into anything.
I don't know if you've seen, but I actually helped Westcott with this when it first coming out, but the little pistol grip that they made for the smaller strobes.
Oh yeah.
Great because you literally, especially if you're in a country, let's say you don't have your proper assistant and you're just getting a guide or somebody with you, you can literally say, just hold this and point it in the direction of your subject. And it does work. So it's a nice element to add, and it's in a very small package as well.
It's got to be instinctual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you working on now? Like we were talking about personal projects before we got going on, and you had like a weird look on your face. So I've got to ask, what's up with the personal projects?
Well, I'll out you. You said you don't love, personal work. You're here to make money. That's
I just don't chase it. Like, look, when this becomes a job and every day you're shooting for other people, after a while, you're like, the last thing I want to do is pick up my camera for myself and figure something out.
Okay, wholeheartedly disagree. So
go for it. Let's do it.
I always have personal projects going on the side, and multiple of reasons. Number one, clients want to see your personal work because it's not directed by somebody else.
That's true.
So they're actually seeing what you see, and that's what you're wanting to have as a tool to stand out as a photographer in again, in my opinion.
No, totally. I totally agree. Believe
Okay.
me. I'm just tired, bro. I'm just tired.
You drink all this coffee and you're tired?
That's probably why I'm tired.
The other aspect to it is I use it as a vehicle to try new things. So in the example of a project that I did called Right Next Door, which was interesting people that live all around us that you have no idea what their story is. And I wanted to be non-technical. I'm so technical with lighting, and I wanted to break that down. So what if I'm in the situation on a job and all I have is one strobe and all I can do is bang it into a wall, and I need every location and I'm at 16 different locations to look ultimately around the same.
A little uniform, right?
That would be a way to do it. So this was a vehicle. Plus it also allowed me to teach myself how to do motion. And at the time I didn't know. And so I used it as a double teaching moment for me. Then right now I'm working on a project of what I call cinematic portraits, where I'm shooting everything with a 28mm fixed lens Leica and making portraits. So here I am forcing myself, very similar to what I did in college, to get over my fear of shooting people, was to use a wide lens and get closer. Tom McGovern instructed me that way. I don't know if you know Tom, but he was my professor, thank God, my senior year of college. He was a former photo editor at the Village Voice, and
wow,
great photographer. Yeah, great photographer himself. Yeah. So Tom, pushed me because I was kind of not into shooting people, and he was like, throw a 50 on your camera and shoot portraits with a 50. And of course I take everything one step further and I threw a 28 on there.
28 is wide, man.
Yeah. So this project right now is forcing me to see differently. And what it is feeling more like is things that I would be doing on like a BTS situation, where we don't always have lights, or maybe we're piggybacking off what the crew is doing, anything along those lines. In some cases I do light it, but it's coming up with something different. And again, it's all for the point of showcasing how I see things, so that when my clients who go through my work say, okay, well, what do you have that's key art? What do you have that's celebrity? Here's examples of all this stuff. Okay, great. You're like everybody else. So what makes you different?
Right.
So now this personal project, oh, this is what I'm working on. Oh, here's another one I did. I've also reopened a project I did on motorcycle riders that I started during COVID to show people I could still work during that period of time. And it's portraits of the riders based on their motorcycle, but not necessarily with the motorcycle. So it's more about the rider, but I find them based on the bike.
I think I saw that image. You did like the garage looking light to it when you were on stage. Was that from that series?
No, that one.
I was like, is it underwear or something like that?
That was Rooster.
Okay.
No, Rooster, I had photographed for the project, and then he called me and said, can you do another portrait of me? And it was his idea of the underwear. That wasn't my idea. But nonetheless, that's where I did meet him originally, was in that project. Again, saw his chopper and wrote to him on Instagram, and I said, hey, I saw your bike. It looks pretty cool. Would you be interested in this project? And I showed him a one-page basically showing what it would look like.
That's cool. I'm not against personal projects. For me, I am like, by the end of the day, I just am so tired. But if you find a reason to chase it, there's always a reason to go shoot. I guess I'm just like lacking of the inspiration on that end for it, or like giving myself an assignment while, you're already working. It's just like more work that you're giving yourself. And you always say like, I'll put it off. I'll do this. I was cleaning my apartment the other day, right? Which, rare occasion. I found 17 sketchbooks of languages. I don't know what I was trying to say to myself, sketches that I'm trying to like decipher, all concepts that I never got around to shooting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll agree with you in this way. If I'm on vacation, I'm not dragging a camera with me, right?
Not even a Leica? You're not going to pull the Leica out?
The Leica I do take. I actually purchased it for that reason.
Bougie boy.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, I worked hard for that. And nobody calls me bougie. I call everybody else bougie. But just dragging a Canon with 5 lenses and all this.
No, it's too much.
Too much. And the reality is that I don't like when people say, oh, you're a photographer, here, you take this picture of this group, that kind of stuff. It's not my thing. I'm not that kind of photographer. And, when I moved to where I live in California, I'd explain no kids, no weddings, no pets. Like, that's not the kind of guy that I am as a photographer. And the reality is that, yes, I agree that I don't want to have a camera in my hand 24/7, but I do like this idea that personal projects allow you to open up your mind in a way that you're not fixated on, this is the way I shoot. My light goes right here. No, I don't ever want to be so, safe in my zone
Oh,
that
yeah.
I can't be versatile, and as well that I don't have a solution. That's the whole point of all this to me, is that I have solutions so that when my client says, I don't really like that light, but they can't explain why,
Yep.
then I say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or our light goes down and all you have is one tiny little window. Can you shoot with that tiny little window? I'll make it work. That's always my answer. I'll make it work. I always say, these are not problems. These are challenges, and challenges are meant to be overcome. Well, so I'm always looking for those solutions to those challenges.
That's what I always say. Like, pros always deliver, even if it's a not exactly what you were going to go for, whatever. Like, somehow we always come out with something. But I feel like one of the things I really appreciate this far into my career is there's no heavy uplifting if I'm going to go do something. So I'm like, I want to do this. There's no guessing, like, boom, this, no extra gear, no extra fat on set. Like, you know what you're going to do. Right. So that I appreciate. I take it for granted for sure. Like, you're making me feel like I'm totally lazy right now. Like, I feel like I should get, but you have to find something you want to go shoot. You have to find it. And that's the hardest part, not going to go shoot it. You find the energy when you want it. You know what I mean?
Well, somebody asked me once why I was so open with my lighting schemes and BTS and all that other stuff. And it's for that very reason. I believe even if you're a better hustler than me, I'm going to always out hustle you. And that's the way that I've always approached the business, is that I'll share anything about what I do. I'll share the business part. I'll share the lighting. I'll share the cameras I use, settings, all that stuff. It doesn't matter to me because we're never going to make the same image. You're always going to see it slightly differently than I'm going to see it. You're going to push that button at a fraction of a second different time than I'm going to push it. You're going to compose it different. You're going to light it different, all those things. So to me, like, we need to hold each other up as photographers, and that's super important to me. It's why I do speaking engagements and all that, jazz, because the reality is I want us all to know this industry in a way that we all can succeed. It's competition, but not like that. Not really, no. Yeah, not like that.
At least not like the old days. But I don't think people understand that, like, we have to protect our own industry together. Like, are holding our rates at a certain place and stuff like that. Big like time. Don't give it all away, kind of things like that, or value yourself so you can stay in business and things like that.
I mean, I literally called out a photographer who I've known for many years, just online. I've never met him personally, but great photographer. And I literally just wrote him one day and I was like, dude, you're charging too little and it's bad. It not only belittles you, but it belittles the industry. And if that's what you're going to charge for the high quality portraits that you're doing yourself a huge disservice, and all of us too. So up your rates. Yeah. and he's like, but I can't. And I'm like, no, you can. Turn down the jobs that pay too little. Don't take it just because you need a couple bucks. Take it because it's actually something you're comfortable taking. And I have nothing against doing jobs for low budgets. If it's going to get ends to the means, right? I do a lot of editorial work because it gives me access to a lot of the celebrities that I might not get a shoot with otherwise, but it also puts me in that place where I do that one shoot with them. You just don't know. They could love you so much that they say, well, you're doing my next movie poster and I'm going to make sure that the studio knows that you're my guy. Well, and that's what that ultimately, I'd love that if that happens.
That's the biggest currency, right? We always say relationships are the biggest currency, but what I always try to tell them, at least, and you can totally disagree with me or whatever, the job is the audition for the rest of your career. The way you are on set, the way they leave feeling, the way you deliver those images on time, how your demeanor, everything. Even just like, there's times where I literally give them the flash drive right out of my set and they just leave with it, like, do whatever you're going to do with it. We're done here. But however you go about it, that's your, even like catering, liking you and just wanting to be like, hey, I worked that guy before. Just that vibe you have around you, or I guess the kids call it aura now. It's always an audition. If you think of it that way, you're always keeping yourself sharp and on point, I feel.
I agree 1,000%. I often say to people, not only are you as good as your last job, but as well that the whole, I mean, even portfolio reviews, I've shifted my portfolio reviews to, they've already seen my work. I'm on social, I got a website, it's out there, right? So when I go into that portfolio meeting, I just want to learn, what do you do? Tell me about the jobs you're working on. And then when they open it up to sharing my story, then I'm going to share my story. And it's more about our back and forth. And if this goes well, then that means that we can hang on set for the day or the week or the month or whatever it's going to be, that then I use my crew to reflect that. So the people I hire, And
They're under your name.
Yeah, the vibe we create on set. I literally, one of my biggest clients has returned for 4.5 years because they love the vibe we create on set. And I have a great producer who, gets a churro truck for a day, or, gets snow cones delivered to the set.
Awesome.
And does things like that. Those little things that make you wantable and likable and all those things. And the talent often is the given, especially when you get to the professional level. You're dealing with a situation where it's a given that you know how to create an image.
Oh yeah,
right?
they come correct, you come correct, you're done. It's not like, I always say civilians, like I should probably stop saying that, but like you shoot civilians, it's like, here's how you make sure you hydrate before you show up, and all these like things, and then you try to make them calm, and then all stuff, and then you're doing the small talky stuff, like, and and that happens with everybody. But when you have like someone that's understands the 2 minutes you have, and they are on that 2 minutes, like probably every week somewhere else, it is so not 2 minutes. It is so like done.
Yeah.
Screensaver going on here. No zombies though. Look at that.
That's good.
Oh, wait,
There's the zombie. There he is.
What is going on here? Sorry, man. So what are you going to do with the personal projects? Are we talking about something like a book you're throwing out? Are you going to publish it? Is it just for you? Does it go just to your archive?
I'm always, in a mix of thought on that. I would say that the number of the cinematic portraits have actually won awards already. So I'm able to tout that on socials and talk about that. I've got 2 images in a gallery show that opens tomorrow night.
Nice. Congrats.
Here in New York. That's part of the reason I came here.
Where's that?
At the APA New York show. So at Soho Gallery tomorrow night, 6 to 8. And
we're fans of Soho Gallery. We've had a lot of APA events here.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And so, for that alone, then it was worth its effort, right? That I have the ability to say I'm an award-winning photographer, and here are some images that won awards. The firefighter project I did in 2012, which was one of my first personal projects, did become a published book.
Nice.
And a publisher actually gave us an advance and sent me to 3 other locations around the country to create a nationwide story, not just a local story. It was on the firehouse in the town I grew up in Hastings in Westchester County here in New York. And so it started there. I showed it to a publisher. They liked it, and they sent me to 3 other locations across the country. So you just don't know.
Right. You never know.
The Right Next Door series, I think would be a great book. I did interview all the people, and I had an editor who worked with me. I'm not so good at writing, I should say. So he helped me with my writing.
I feel you.
Made me speak English.
Just chat GPT. What are you talking
Well,
about?
now,
Just
it didn't
do
exist.
this.
It didn't exist then. I actually wrote one of my, I wrote a afterword for the cigar book.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I did use ChatGPT to help, and I sent it to him because he was editing the book, and he was like, "Man, you've gotten much better at your writing." And I said nothing. I just went, "Thanks."
You're happy. We're happy.
Yeah, exactly.
We're good.
Exactly.
Got to an end.
Yeah. And I said, "You're probably really good with your iPhone as a photographer, man. It's all good."
Oh man. Do you ever get that? Like, do you get a lot of phones on your sets? Do you ever get like those?
Constantly.
It's just so annoying to me.
Yeah. I mean, nicely, a lot of the celebrity sets you can't. If
Oh,
there's
it's NDA'd out.
NDAs
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But social's huge. So social is going to be part of it. And a lot of times the talent themselves is doing it. So it's just a reality of it. Again, I'm open to people seeing my lighting. It's like, whatever, man, you're still not going to take the same shot I'm going to take. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. The one thing that drives me up a wall is they take pictures of the tether or something. That drives me nuts. Like they're taking a picture while we're working on the pictures. Like, what are you doing? It drives me crazy.
You mean the image that comes up on the computer?
Yeah.
An unfinished image. That's a tough one.
Or it's also a copy of a copy through a phone. Like, what are we doing?
Although the iPhone's pretty damn good.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it? I mean, I feel like there's so much processing in it.
Realize that we're looking at it in 2 square inches or whatever.
No, I get it, but it's like, I think it makes skin look waxy to me. There's there's some processing.
Well, depending on the camera how many thumbprints are on the person's phone and all that stuff.
It's all
as well.
weird.
I mean, the reality is that I would argue the bigger issue to me is that our judgment is based on a flip of a screen now.
Oh yeah.
And people are like, "Oh my God, that's an amazing image." If you actually look at that image, it's crap. And,
or processed to death, like
filtered out or whatever.
Crazy over retouched slider junk. And I'm like, that's not even real lighting. You burned in the contouring and things. I'm like, what are you doing? What am I looking at?
I mean, a big aspect of things I like to address is really in the idea of longevity. And to have longevity in part of your career as a ultimate goal. And that's really difficult more and more as our market becomes flooded with cameras that make it easier to shoot, cell phone cameras and all these things that basically take the skill away. But the reality is that a good image is still a good image. So if you're still creating great imagery, people are going to respond to it. And again, without the words explaining it, that's the goal.
And it also depends on where it's landing, like what it's actually going to be living and and presented to public. I mean, I totally understand the whole BTS thing. I literally shoot live all the time for you guys. But I just remember when social media, it was still like years ago, we were still navigating it. Brands would take my phone and lock it and I get it back when I left set.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, there are sets that we have where they literally said, you cannot, you can't even take it out.
You go to a comedy cell, you go to the Comedy Cellar here in New York, they put your phone in a metallic envelope and you're like, okay. And then everyone's living in the present. You can see people getting anxious and like their phone's vibrating, but they can't look at it. It's like, whoa.
So a quick story on that. So I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And part of my bucket list was to see him in
Couldn't tell.
jeans and t-shirt. Come on. Part of my
He's got a towel hanging out of his pocket. The whole thing.
Part of my dream was to see him perform in Europe. So
cool.
A COVID show got canceled and tickets came up for $200. And I was like, oh my God. Right. So I jumped on it. Two tickets, $200.
And you hopped on a plane?
Went on a plane, went to France to go see him.
Wow.
And the sheer volume of people that watch the show through their phone as they're recording. And I'm sitting there and, I have no interest in doing that. I might take a one shot more of the atmosphere than anything else. I mean, we were in the huge rugby stadium and like, you don't get that same vibe in America. And having seen him, over a dozen times, I'm not going to say how many times, but many times, I know what arenas in America look like, seeing him. And that experience was so different, but I'm not going to live it through a phone. I have no interest in that. Same thing with like, and not to knock people, but, photographing your kids and stuff and being at a party, with your kids and shooting through your phone, videoing the whole time. You're not present, and I'd rather be present. It's one thing when you're behind a camera and you're creating an image, but when you're just mindlessly filming or whatever and you're looking at the screen when it's literally happening in front of you like that's very sad to me.
Well, I think they never built the discipline of shooting, right? They just have this device now that they've been living their life with and through. And when they talk to people, the first thing people do is pull out their phone to show them something that they did somewhere. Or I'm like, cool, like we're here.
Yeah.
What's up? Or there's what I find with a lot of younger people is they go like, it doesn't really count unless I shared it and everyone knew I did it, but you didn't do it. You were barely there, man.
You weren't present.
It's wild, right?
Yeah, it is.
But we are in a world of immediacy. I mean, we're dealing with cameras right now that are putting in camera to cloud systems built into the cameras, right? Like it almost has to be immediacy. So as a celebrity photographer for so many years, have you felt a pressure to be like, deliver faster, get it out there fast? Like how has that evolved over the years for you?
I mean, it's what we used to call a rush, which we used to get paid for. Now you don't. It's
What's a rush? What would you say?
I mean, I've had shoots. I just did a shoot, 3 weeks ago, and it was for cover of LA Times. We had to deliver that evening. Of course, talent was 2 hours late, and I can't control that, but I can control how fast I deliver the shoot. And as you know, from what LA is, it's traffic. So I'm out in a far off destination. I got to drive back to my studio and upload images very quickly. Thankfully, there's no retouching for them. So there's no retouch, aspect of it, but that's an immediate shoot and deliver situation. Very many times I'm on set, like you were just talking about, where we have to download the raw files, put it on a hard drive, hand it to the client before the end of the day, and that's it. And I have a job next week, 4 days. Every day I have to deliver at the end of the day.
That sounds about right.
No digital tech.
Yeah.
It's not, it becomes, okay, how do I do this? And I do use OWC products and OWC cards. I will tell you that thing screams, man. That thing's fast.
OWC doesn't play around.
Yeah. And I love the fact that it's very quick download for me. And it's really, a matter of whatever hard drive they hand me is how fast I'm going to turn it over to them.
Yeah. I've done years ago. I did for a European brand shooting here. They were on literally a video call watching the shoot from wherever they are. And it's going from the tether automated to a hot folder. So they're getting it in real time.
Yep.
And I'm like, people have no idea what that's like.
I did a job for Showtime Sports doesn't exist anymore, but I did a job for Showtime Sports where it was a dual job where I was doing portraits of the boxers before the event and then shooting live during the fight. Now, I've never shot boxing before, so this was new to me.
That's cool.
And I'm definitely not an action photographer, but obviously I know how to do it, right? Yeah. So in between when the bell rings and the next bell rings, I had to deliver files by myself. So I didn't have a runner or anything like that. So I'm literally shooting, and it's actually easier today than it was this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago at most. It's easier today that I could do it where I could have shot directly in to a laptop or an iPad and just airdropped everything. But then I had to actually pull the card, quickly download, then upload JPEG. So I was jumping from, at the time I was using a Cam Ranger to shoot.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So I was taking the shots with what Cam Ranger does is creates its own Wi-Fi, right?
Yep.
So I'm shooting on that Wi-Fi, then switching to the hotel's Wi-Fi where the fight was going on to upload the JPEGs so that they could post live.
Yeah. So that was real good Wi-Fi.
Now, since then, I've purchased a portable Wi-Fi, so that now I can use that.
What do they call it?
It was like $125 off Amazon. It was a great buy, and man, that thing, you purchase Wi-Fi rights basically. Yeah. So it's like a phone card or whatever. So that's hotspot. So yeah, that was a crazy experience and something I'd never done before. And again, I'm having to edit images on the fly. So I'm quickly thumbing through and saying, okay, that's a cool shot. That's a good, connection of the glove to the face, or, the guy just got defeated and he's down on his knee or whatever. Got that shot. Okay, I'm going to send that up because they're posting it right away. And, that's crazy.
Well, it's like shooting to wire. You're throwing that Ethernet connection, shooting to an FTP while you're in real time.
Yeah.
And then your old job, right, would have been like just flinging images everywhere they got to go in real time.
Yeah.
When you watch the Olympics and stuff's hitting like Twitter, you're like, there's someone in a room with their sleeves rolled up with a giant cup of coffee, losing their mind, ingesting thousands of images and trying to figure out where things go.
Yeah.
It's wild.
When I worked as an editor at ESPN, that was one of my sort of ending point jobs as a photo editor. I never had to do it, thankfully, but I dealt more with the, kind of heavy portraiture stuff. But a lot of the jobs that we had were live sports where we would have a runner taking memory cards from the photographer, feeding it into a laptop, uploading it to an FTP site that somebody was pulling images down.
But when he says runner, he means physically. Like they literally were going somewhere else to get to that laptop and that connection. They weren't like right next to you.
No, they couldn't sit there because of whatever the event was or whatever the case was. So that was a person who had to be nimble and on the run.
So does camera to cloud interest you? Is that a feature that you think is, you're not really doing that kind of stuff right now, but
I don't think it would apply to me as much. I think the scary part about that to me is potentially taking the digital tech out of the jobs that we do. And that I don't like to hear. I'd rather, one of the first questions I ask on any entertainment assignment, streaming services, that kind of thing is, do you need a digital tech? And the reason or the difference I would say for those who don't know is either I'm shooting to an iPad or a laptop so that my client can see images as I'm shooting, or I have a digital tech who is either pulling from a tether or pulling cards as I'm shooting and showing the client right then and there. And then they're dealing with the metadata and all the other, aspects. That's a job, right?
Oh, it's amazing.
And I'd hate to see that taken away. There are a lot of assignments I do where, I use Avoto AI, and Avoto allows me to tether to an iPad and shoot with images being retouched as I'm shooting, which is crazy. So I could literally do your headshot, and by the time you walk around to the iPad, you can choose your final retouched image and airdrop it to yourself and walk out with it. And I love that that's possible, and it's definitely coming in handy. Would I use it on a big streaming service client? Doubtful,
right.
But I was just up for a job where it was literally going for a streaming service right to social, and they may or may not have needed something like that because the subjects were influencers, and those influencers wanted to be clean, and those images that they were going to then use needed to be clean and ready to go. And software like that allows me to do that. So I do embrace technology. Everybody's afraid of AI. It's this big, scary, looming thing. I say, no, don't be scared. Embrace it, understand it, find out how you can use it, and then you will stay in the conversation.
Well,
you know,
AI is like such a massive blanket term now that you have to really understand there's way more than just like AI, like or whatever. But the other thing about a Digitech that I don't think people realize, and it helped me out one time, a long time ago on a job, they're another redundancy. So I had a laptop go down. My Digitech not only had a laptop for me, but a hard drive already with the newest version of Capture One to go.
Yep.
And I was back up and going in like a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
well, to be the photographer and then have to run over and try to figure out why your laptop's not working,
Yeah.
you know? And I'd always tell this story how I keep these notebooks of all my sets, right?
Yeah,
I've been doing this at the beginning of my career, and it's just bird's eye view of the set. And I do share that on Instagram quite a lot, by the way. But one of the other tools that has provided is that I tape the final image into the book as well. So when the laptop does freeze up, I hand the book to my client and say, "Oh, here's some stuff I've been working on. Check it out." And then I can deal with the laptop. Yeah.
Slick. I just make them look at a puppet in this hand while I
A sock puppet or what?
Yeah, it depends on my mood. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's the bird. I don't know. I have more, I don't know. Listen, we're at time, guys. Don't forget, follow my man right here to stay up on everything. I'm going to try to get it back in here next time he's in New York, do an actual demo. I'm glad we finally got to talk. It's been such a weird orbit. I feel like it's been like this weird force field. So I'm really glad you came through. If you're new here, there are 79 other episodes of this. Go check out the playlist. Run it while you're editing. Okay. Run it while you're in the studio. Capture some weird things you might've missed. Don't forget to check out the Adorama events page over here, the channel. So when I get him in here to shoot live, you do not miss it. Ian, I can't thank you enough for being here. Any last shout outs or anything you want them to find you at? Or
so Instagram is the easiest place to find me at Ian Spanier. That's the easiest spot. And if you want to check out my websites, www.ianspanier.com.
Cool. Tomorrow, Daniel Norton is live right here in the event space, 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then. Ian, thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Peace.
Appreciate it.
Have a good rest of the week, guys. Be good to each other.